Alright, so um this is important. I've decided to record at 2 a.m. in the morning because yeah, this is quite interesting if I could say this. Now I like Alder Lake as a platform, sort of like I like it at you know I like Alder Lake, but at the same time I think it's horrible. I think it's a horrible platform. I think it's borderline unusable. And I only say this because we have to remember what we use our PCs for, which is, at the end of the day, PCs are tools for either work or leisure. You can obviously use PCs for things like benchmarking, which is more of like a, I guess you could say a non-physical sort of sport, but like a competitive architecture. But obviously, you could say it's a sort of a sport because chess is a sport, for example. Not all sports have to be physical, but for the most part, most people, in fact, even the benchmarkers themselves, do use their computers for leisure, so Netflix, games, and work. Now, when you can't trust your computer, it's quite an issue. Now, Alder Lake is lightning fast. DDR5 is lightning fast. Anyone that says DDR5 isn't a very performant technology is just, like, you're clutching at straws because you probably just hate the fact that it's expensive and that maybe you can't afford it. Not to say that like I'm not trying to like rag on people, like nothing like that, but DDR5 is good. It's just not quite refined as of yet. But if I pull something up here, something decent, this was pretty meh. Hold on, that's those are. This is what I had my old kit that was kind of like not faulty, but sort of faulty, you could say. And these speeds are pretty horrible, yes. But so these sort of speeds and stuff are horrible, but when you get up to like this kind of speed, then it's like different. It's pretty good at this point. 56.5 is still kind of high, but yeah, I mean, this benchmark doesn't really capture the efficiency of DDR5. So yeah, but whatever. So basically, Alder Lake in DDR5, and obviously on DDR4, it is a great platform in terms of performance. Like, Intel made a very performant platform. The architecture is very, very good. It's just not very, very refined. Like, the problem I have with Alder Lake is that, okay, well, let me just go back to my notepad, but why this is on screen right now is because if I go to hardware info, if I go over my hardware info, you'll notice something, and that is that I'm quite clearly running stock at this point, right? So you can quite clearly see that my P cores, E cores, ring all fluctuating like crazy. This is completely bone stock, and stock voltages, stock everything, stock C states, stock everything, except XMP is enabled, which is, I mean, in my opinion, XMP it should be regarded as stock because they're selling you a validated profile that their screeners should have stringently tested, and in my mind, XMP should become like a more hard rule type thing because I don't feel like it's fair when someone buys an XMP kit and ends up getting issues. And you know what? Thank God for Wootware, because Wootware are really nice. Like, let me just say this: Wootware did have some weird GPU prices throughout the year, which we're not going to go into too much. But let me just say that their support staff and their, like, the way they treat their customers is like second to none for the most part. Like, in terms of being respectful, understanding, willing to help, like, they're very, very nice. Like, they're very, very nice. They're a very nice company, and they were nice enough to see it my way in that my first DDR5 kit had some issues. So, and I'm not on a tangent, actually. This is part of the video, because there's a lot of aspects to why I'm making this video, but let me just grab Notepad for now. But to come back to the burn test result, notice how my system agent is 1.25, right? This for fun, this for interest, or just by chance is actually correct. I don't know if Asus. Well, I'm assuming they did know, because I mean, their BIOS writers probably know what's going on. But I've seen that some Asus in-house overclockers run this rail quite high, like 1.6 even. I'm not saying it's dangerous. I'm saying they manage to, which is kind of weird, because I can't even, like, myself and the one individual who's used Asus boards quite a lot, who I spoke to on the AHOC Discord, Skullbringer, agreed with me in that neither of us can run this rail higher than 1.25 on Asus boards. If we run this higher than 1.25, I think at Apex I have a crappy Strix F, but this above 1.25 causes like severe instability. Like, I'll start seeing my dash lane and like my fucking like browser extensions start crashing on startup, and I'll start getting like these weird blue screens if this goes above 1.25. Like this above 1.25 is less stable, significantly so, on my system and on Skullbringers. But for some reason, some people can run this past that. I don't know why, but I think that maybe like that's a different BIOS or something, because as far as I understand, it makes sense as to why the moment it doesn't matter what, by the way, it doesn't matter what you set, anything above XMP hits this to 1.25. So whether you have a 5600 kit, a 6000 kit like I have now, like, it doesn't matter. This will go to 1.25 regardless. This rail for some reason is like by CPU, and like my friend, his CPU ran this rail like 1.15 or something. Mine wants 1.25. Now I don't know what the fuck my CPU is on about, because it does not pump 1.25. This shouldn't have worked, because I've had instability with this too high before, and I've had to back this down to like 1.1 to 1.15 depending on the profile. So for example, this one that I had stable before it went like haywire. Where's it now? This required like 1.15, right? And this was reboot stable and cold boot stable, and I ran this as daily for like a whole week, like playing a bunch of games, playing for hours. Left my PC on, and you can see HCI is well above stable. Like, this is well into like daily usability, but somehow this too went bad. And I'll discuss a little bit later. I'm not gonna try and make this video too long. I'll just check how long I've been recording for. Can I see? I must be blind. Oh, 7 minutes. Okay, or 8 minutes. Okay, not too long. Okay, so we're still on track. Hopefully not boring you guys too much. So this is what. So now that you've seen the results, you've seen that this is. So by the way, why this is actually like legit is because I literally deep cleared this PC. So I had it like wall socket powered off for hours, then held in the power button numerous times, then mashed the back rear IO clear CMOS button. Then after that, I took the actual physical battery out and then left it out for like a few minutes while I made coffee, and then came back, put it back in. Then I reflashed the BIOS, and I was like, this better fucking make my board stop being weird, because it was being really weird earlier on. And then I literally just went in, set my fans as I usually do, resize bar, and like and then like made sure secure boot and stuff was on and whatever. And then like once all that like other like miscellaneous stuff was done, all I went in the tweaker menu was I set XMP1. That was it, done. XMP1, because I was like, I'm not wasting my time, and I want to see if the system can be stable at stock, because I want to have a backup profile. And I'm like, XMP1, let's see what happens. Lo and behold, I boot up. Fast boot's still enabled. Fast boot is still enabled. It trains in fast pos through the MRC. Like, somehow it fast trained and stable, and I'm just like, what? Like, this shouldn't work. Like, this should not work. This is too high. But like, I guess not. Like, I mean, this is 6036, and like, this is meant to be too high for this. This should require like 1.1, 1.05 even. So, And I'm not saying like it's dangerous. I'm saying on this platform, usually you see that you see an instability as you overshoot requirements. I don't know why. I guess maybe like there's like the voltage actually ends up causing like rollover, which is what the term most overclockers use. So the rail rolls over, and then you end up getting more instability. But yeah, I don't know how this is stable. But whatever. I guess it's cool. Some fucking miracle. Maybe with this deep clear and the reflash of the BIOS off the deep clear, maybe now it's gonna be less buggy. I don't know. I'm still waiting for that fucking BIOS. Like, Asus, come on, like, guys, really, like, come on. I know I don't have an extreme. I'm considering buying one because there's a guy on Carbonite selling. So the one second-hand site in our countries, like, called Carbonite, and the one dude on there is selling an extreme for a pretty damn good price, like $750 US. Only catches it's got no warranty because it's a review sample. But yeah, I'm heavily considering buying that, selling my board, but literally paying more than double the money for pretty much no improvements. Like, the VRM is a nothing burger. 4 DIMMs still, so nothing burger. Like, yeah, you have 8 layers, or is it 10 layers of PCB? I don't know. But I mean, if it's 10 layers, I might grab it. I don't know. We'll see. But whatever. So this is like, come on. They need to update this BIOS. They need to like give us a new one, because I think the Apex and the Extreme have a new BIOS already. But whatever. This is stable somehow. I have no idea how. I believe it's stable because it fast passed through MRC and was stable afterwards. That is something that doesn't usually happen, especially not when this is too high. So I'm leaning towards that something weird happened and now it's just not behaving the same way as it was before. I have no idea how it works, but something must have happened. And I can't explain it because this IMC is so fucking weird in Alder Lake. But some issues I've seen thus far. So some XMP kits don't train correctly, just like my first kit. I'm not sure why. The ICs seem to be fine. I ran that first kit at 5600 40 40 40 with 1.1 volts. That's JDEC voltage. The ICs were very good because 5600 40 40 40 is beating JDEC by a margin at the same voltage. These ICs were good, but they couldn't train 1.2 volts. They couldn't train a 1.3 volt config. They couldn't train anything fast really. And the system agent and IMC VDD requirements was like for the lower speed, like speed bins, on that kit was higher than like it's almost like you could see the strain the ICs in that kit were putting on my memory controller to get them to communicate, or like to be able to communicate with them. It's almost like the IMC didn't like talking to them, if that makes any sense. Very, very weird stuff. But yes, and I've observed that over a few people now. A few people now have come to me, and well, not come to me, but they've bumped into me online on forums and like Facebook groups, and we ended up having the same or similar issues just by happenstance. And then I see more posts about XMP not training, and you just Google it, and there's so many people saying that there's XMP issues with various boards and BIOSes. It's just so weird that I don't really know, like, when it'll end. Like, when will this be resolved? I don't know. Not just that, but random restarts is a thing. I know Linus made a video recently where Anthony found out it was actually C-states for him. It could be C-states, because as you can see, Alder Lake has a weird behavior where it downclocks the ring and it downclocks the cores, and then it upclocks the ring as well, like to 4.7 as you can see here. And it basically has this whole system where it just like fluctuates the clock speeds at stock, by the way. If you run this static, it's not as much of an issue with ring if you can like get a static rock solid in quotation marks all core with ring OC, and your ring is staying stable, like, or staying static. You actually get less weirdness, but I would imagine this has something to do with the random restarts, but you can see how the CPU does it. Like this L2 voltage, look, it minned it at 0, so it hits 0 and the equals get like I was gonna say parked, but more like downclocked and just like kind of pushed aside. And man, Alder Lake is. Let me just say that I respect the effort done by the Intel. I like Intel. I've always liked Intel. Not so I'm a fanboy, but I've liked Intel because their CPUs always, when I first started building PCs, Intel CPUs always just seemed to be less troublesome. I only had one AMD CPU and it was troublesome, and performance wise it wasn't too great, but that was the FX, and that FX is not the same as what AMD have turned into now. But still, I used Ryzen 5000. I love that CPU. I love the 5900X I had, but a lot of bugs on the Agisa BIOS and a lot of quirks. But again, I think Ryzen is actually more usable than Alder Lake. I genuinely would rather own a Ryzen system right about now, because I just, at least with the Ryzen system, I could overclock the RAM, overclock the CPU, and do whatever, and know that my system is stable the next day. With Alder Lake, it's like the weather changes, different ambient temperature, all of a sudden your voltage requirements change. Now all of a sudden one of the rails in your CPU has got like too much voltage or too little voltage, depending on the temperature in the day, and then like that ends up destabilizing something else. It's just this whole fucking knock-on effect, because look, dude, like look at it, like you can see, not to say that we all run stock, because if someone that watches this is overclocking like I am, then this doesn't really apply to you. But notice how the behavior is. Like, that's what I'm trying to get to, is look at the behavior. Look at how the cores fluctuating affect the ring, because the ring goes higher as the E-cores go lower. Does it make sense? If the E-cores get parked, the ring goes higher, because the ring can run higher when the E-cores are not being used. When the E-cores are being used, the ring must downclock, otherwise it will crash the system. That's something you have to understand. You can't run 4.7 ring on Alder Lake. When the E-cores on, it doesn't work. So the E-cores are being parked, and then the ring jumps up, and that's microseconds, nanoseconds, right? And when the E-cores disable, this drops to 0. And then there's some other rail that changes too. I forgot. I can't see it now, but obviously VCore, but like there's another rail that also I've seen fluctuates a little bit. But yeah, so Alder Lake is weird. Alder Lake is quite weird with how it works, and it's very intricate, and it could be that we just don't know how to overclock it properly yet, but it doesn't really run that stable at stock either, though. So one thing I wanted to say was, when I first got my first received, that's a better word, my replacement kit from Hootware, XMP wasn't stable off boot. Yeah. So what you just saw didn't happen the first time. Like, what you just saw in burn test did not happen. When I booted XMP, it wasn't stable. I had to change the SA voltage, and I had to change the IMC voltage, and I had to change... no. I couldn't get XMP stable at stock when I added my fixed core overclock and fixed the ring stable. I knew that the ring fluctuating was doing something weird and causing the voltage requirement of SA to kind of change on the fly, and thus during the calculations was causing errors. Why do I know this? Because it happened. Like, while running the system stock with my XMP and then not adjusting like SA and stuff, it wasn't stable. When I did adjust SA, it still wasn't stable. I had to run the fixed core OC to get stock stable alongside my XMP. Now, I don't know, it could be that I should have deep cleared my system. It could very well be that every time you change kits of RAM or change, even like change too many settings, because I'm beginning to think that even training different memory settings and failing MRC and then like crashing and blue screening changes the way your BIOS and your board interacts with the RAM and the CPU. It's like, I know I sound like a fucking like weirdo now. When I say I'm sounding super like, no, you're talking out of your ass. Being serious, like, I've noticed that when I would go for more overclocks and train in different profiles, it's almost like training in other memory settings, like, made the settings prior, like, less stable. It's almost like it changed the way the CPU was behaving. It's very weird. Which is why I was like, you know what, maybe that's why I thought I wanted to try stock XMP, because I thought, after deep clear, what if deep clearing the system actually allowed my system to be kind of starting at a base level, like a very clean slate, and then just act normally? Because look now, like, I'm stable at complete stock. My fucking core and my ring are like fluctuating like crazy. I've got balanced Windows profile on, so they're dropping to like 400 megahertz. I've got my XMP on. It seems stable. It fast passed through the memory training and was still stable. Like, just weird. It's just like, no, it shouldn't have happened. It should have been unstable. With this voltage, the fact that MRC fast pass was enabled, and the fact that this failed before, like, it's just very weird. Like, how did it pass now? Like, it should have failed again, like, logically speaking. So where's the consistency? Like, how do you know what you're gonna get? Like, so I certainly believe that different memory settings change the way in which the CPU communicates with the RAM. Like, i.e., like, if you train one profile, the next profile you train will destabilize. Will affect the training of the previous profile. Yeah. So, and by the way, like, listen closely before someone smart tries to comment and say, "Oh well, dude, you just should have re-enabled re-disabled like memory fast boot and retrain the profile again." Like, no, I've tried that. Like, that didn't work. Like, that literally, like, you could do that. You could even restart the system and then do that, and then cold boot it if you want. Dude, literally, it becomes like more and more unstable, or it becomes like it becomes stable and then unstable again, and then it's just like, what the fuck? Like, there's no way to win. You literally can't use logic to, like, fix this problem. And I know I'm not alone, because I've been, like, observing the discords, and it seems like everyone that runs aggressive memory settings are running into this, like, cold boot problem. And a lot of people that run Alder Lake have been getting random crashes. Now, I believe that the reason for this is because even if you tested your RAM, or if you knew how to stress test your IMC, even if you pass stuff like Y-Crunch or whatever, it doesn't mean that you'll pass it again, like, in 2 days' time. Like, literally training your memory at the wrong place at the wrong time, on the just on the wrong day with the wrong amount of ambient temperature, affecting the actual like because I think ambient affects how much voltage you require on agent, because, as you know, as a system becomes warmer, it requires more voltage to maintain stability, and then it just so happens that as you're warmer, like, using more voltage is, like, harder to stabilize. It's a fucking horrible negative feedback system, but generally speaking, if you're warmer, you require more voltage to be stable. That's why if you're on LN2, you can get away with running Cinebench at 5.5 gigahertz with like 1.3 volts, because you're so cold that, for whatever reason, it just works that way. But I think that if you have SA set on a certain, like, let's say you nail SA right slap bang in the middle to where you're stable, because obviously I said in the previous video, one of the previous videos, that 25 millivolts too much could be unstable. 25 millivolts too few, unstable. It's weird like that. And if you nail that SA voltage, well, what if the temperature changes? What if you now require less SA to be stable in the IMC because it's colder? So now you're overvolted. Now you're supplying too much voltage. Now you're going to be unstable. Now you're going to affect memory training. Like, now it's just a mess. And I'm saying this from experience because I saw this happen. So Christmas in South Africa was very cold. It's the middle of summer, but for some reason Christmas Day and the days surrounding Christmas were extremely cold and rainy. And I noticed how my system agent requirement decreased as the temperature dropped, and as a result, the system that I had stable days prior with the sun out was no longer stable on Christmas Day, and I noticed that it seemed as though SA was actually becoming easier to run. So easier as in, it was easier to stabilize the memory controller with less voltage, because it was colder. And the CPU was running colder in the stress test. It's just a fucking nightmare, isn't it? So, please understand that what I'm saying does have merit. I'm not the most big brain guy in the industry, but I promise you that what I'm saying has some level of merit, because I've just seen it happen so many times. Because I like to make like a bunch of like almost like I'm baking like cooking almost. Like I like cooking like RAM profiles. I like making them, right? So I'll sit in BIOS for like a whole day and just like bake a bunch of different RAM profiles. Like I'll be like, oh, I'll try this frequency with this timing at this voltage, and then I'll just have like a bunch of profiles to select from, and I'll get them more stable. And I'll go through my whole process of getting it stable, how I always said is what I do. But even still, like, there's been situations, so twice now, where profiles I've made and validated as stable have gone unstable, which is so weird to me. The first situation was, now this one's gonna make you guys think I'm crazy, but I'm being dead serious. This actually happened, legit. Like, this really happened. Okay, so obviously, you know, I want the XTXH. Well, not obviously, but I want an XTXH 1600 XT for benchmarking. Now, I wanted to see if perhaps my non XTXH card could do 2.7 gigahertz in game. So this crashed COD Vanguard. Now, funny enough, this I think this was stable before. So I don't know how this was stable this time around, but I think this was unstable before. I'm almost certain that I ran this frequency in Vanguard with my 10850K. So make of that what you will. But this crashed Vanguard. My driver bugged out. I.e., that weird thing with Radeon where like 1/20th of your screen is showing and the rest is black. Basically, the driver basically died. Or had a heart attack. So I rebooted, and when I rebooted, like, I can't make this shit up. Like, how do you go from like 600 to 1000% stable in HCI Pro and burn test stable, reboot stable, to fucking page file errors after a driver crash? Like, what? That makes no sense, but it happened. So what did I do? I tried to play it cool and be like, logically, what changed? Okay, I changed my GPU core frequency that crashed the driver. It's the only thing that changed. Okay, DD the driver in safe mode, obviously. Fixed. So all of a sudden, no more page file BSODs. Like, literally DDUing the driver and reinstalling Radeon's driver fixed page file BSODs. So, sanity check. I decided to boot up some older profiles and start running IBT. Shocker, none were stable. How the fuck did like 5 profiles that I literally like double and triple checked that they were IMC like stable, and then tested HCI to like literally 500 to 1000%. There was a profile that had 1000% coverage. 1000% coverage. And you're telling me that profile was unstable? Like, after 1000%? Like, I don't know, like, that just sounds a bit ridiculous to me. So, I built a new profile. It was this profile that I showed you, and this was good for a week. It's the one I was running when I made my first 2 videos. So, I sent my 6900 in for RMA due to a MLCC on the back beginning to deform. So we were nice enough to look at my pictures, and they contacted Power Color and they were like, yo, because I was like, listen, this MLCC looks extremely deformed compared to what it was like a month ago. It seems like this cap is failing or had a bad solder job or something. Like, can you guys just get this R made? My premise was, if Power Color gets the cartridge back to them now, they can fix it in the factory within 5 minutes. Right? Just replace the cap. It's done. Card is ready to be shipped off. Sold is recertified. Done. Someone else gets the card happy. Option B is I keep the card. It blows up. Not blows up literally, but the cap like blows and potentially causes a fire. A mini fire on the PCB. Burns the PCB. Thus rendering the card, the GPU die, the memory, everything useless. So my premise was, request they take the card back, because that way they can make use of it, give it to someone else, give me a new card, save me the hassle of having a card blow up on my computer. Everyone wins. So luckily they saw it my way and they gave me an RMA. So I'm getting that back tomorrow, or maybe maybe I'm getting it like Thursday or something. But basically, I was overclocking today because I had time, and I couldn't game because I had no GPU. So I was like, why don't I just use the iGPU to render my screen so I can just overclock and stress test? Because I felt like maybe trying to push my all-core, because I wasn't really happy with 5.0. I think I explained that like 5.0 actually is my cap. I've tried 5.1 alone. I've tried with 1.45 set voltage with good enough V-droop. I've tried everything. I've tried like everything you'd logically try to get a core frequency to be stable, and like I swear 5.0 at that like 1.3 volts load voltage was like the absolute peak of stability. I could not get anything else to run in burn test. And yeah, so I wasted my time trying to get it stable using like base clock, like B clock, and I tried using B clock to get my RAM to 6600. I booted 6600 a few times. Obviously that's impressive for daisy chain, but it wasn't like consistent. Like sometimes trading would fail, and I could tell it wasn't going to be stable, so I left it. You can't do 6600 daily on 6 layer daisy chain. I don't think you can do it on fucking 10 layers. I don't think you could do 6600 daily on a fucking extreme, to be honest with you, but whatever. So like this was weird, and that profile was unstable after too many crashes and retrains and training failures. Eventually I was like, let me just make sure, I don't even know why I thought of it, but I was like, let me make sure that my current daily is still stable, because I've been fucking around with all these stupid settings for like 5 hours and nothing is stable. Let's just go back to daily and check it again, and then just go back to what we know is stable. It failed burn test in like 4 passes. After like 4 results, like 4 calculations, it was failed. And I'm like, that really just happened. And by that point I was pretty pissed off. And that's when I kind of just sat back and was like, something is fundamentally wrong with this platform, because I tried building another profile, and this is a fun one. On 2 occasions, after cold booting, my 12900K decides to utilize, and this is important, 67%. Now, what's 67%? 2/3, right? It's 2/3. How many threads does Alder Lake have? 24 threads on the i9. The E-cores are 8 threads. Or 8 of them. You need them gone to run AVX 512. So, wouldn't you have it to my surprise that on 2 occasions, so one morning about a week and a half ago, and today, I boot up IBT and see my CPU doing 340 gigaflops and passing runs in 20 seconds while running at 98C. My CPU is being utilized at 2/3. Why? The CPU decided to not use the equals. How does that even happen? Like, how does the CPU at random, like, it wasn't even, there was no rhyme or reason for it. There was no setting change or something that should have, like, provoked this behavior. Like, at random, my i9 decides to just ditch the equals. Like, what? Like, this is crazy. and just run and just run 512 for no apparent reason. Like you could argue, oh Dane, no, your CPU knew that it was burn test and that's why it decided to run 512 because it made sense. And no, but you understand, it doesn't run 512 all the time. It runs 512 when it wants to. Like, it does that weird thing with the E-cores and 512, like, on occasion. It doesn't do it all the time. It's like, you can't know when it's happening. It's like, it just happens. You just restart the computer, you boot up burn test, and you may or may not have it running at 512 with the E-cores disabled. But, like, not disabled, like, parked, like, unused. Like, the thread director doesn't send work to the E-cores. I don't know why. Like, how does it decide that on this particular burn test run, it's just like, oh, today, on this burn test run, we're doing 512. Fuck it. Like, what? How does the CPU, like, the logic baked into it is, in my opinion, fundamentally flawed, or the BIOS is broken. It's one of the two. So either my BIOS is broken, and this is like something that not everyone like sees, and that maybe like I'm the only one seeing it, or maybe like it happens on only Asus boards. But the other option is that the architecture itself is fundamentally flawed. Your CPU should not be able to decide on a whim that it's going to disable the E-cores and then run 512. No, it should run 512 when you disable the E-cores in BIOS. Or park them. Like, if you have, like, Process Lasso or something, or, like, if you run the legacy game compatibility thing in those apps that Gigabyte offer you to make sure that the thing works. Like, if you scroll lock and then your E-cores are parked, yeah, then you can run 512, obviously. But if you aren't controlling, then how does the CPU decide when and when it doesn't want to run 512? And when it does not want to run the equals? Like, how does my processor decide for me that it doesn't want to run the equals? Like, why? How does it do that? Like, why is that a thing? Like, how could it just decide on its own to ditch 8 threads? Like, it just ditched them. Like, just randomly. It just makes no sense. I can't wrap my head around it. And again, it's because when I run the equals normally, like, they run in burn test. Like, they run. Like, it works all the time. But then, like, on some occasions, the CPU just decides not to run them. Like, why? Weird. And yeah, like, this is pretty much the list, but like I'm saying, Alder Lake is extremely buggy. Like, if you train new settings, your old settings can be unstable. If you cold boot, training can break. If you do anything, if you fucking, like, if you breathe on your fucking RAM sticks, they might go unstable. And, like, I think that's a joke, but that might even be a joke. I mean, if you breathe towards your dim slots, and some of that air fucking collects, like, in the traces, like, of the like unpopulated slots, like, that low key might actually cause some sort of instability because like there's now like I'm not even kidding. That's how fucking finicky this shit is. I've noticed that if you like fiddle with the dims, like if you kind of adjust them, like you kind of push harder on them, it can change like training. Like if you, depending on how you insert the dims, I've noticed it can affect training. Like if you don't insert them flush, training can be worse. Like if you don't insert, like let's say you don't, like let's say you insert one dim in the one channel, like let's say you put one dim in A2 and the other in B2, but like let's say the one that you should have put in A2 isn't B2 now, it might not train as well. Like let's say you don't put the beta stick in the beta channel, like it's that finicky. So I don't know, like Alder Lake is amazing performance wise. Some of the numbers you see in some games, especially the older titles, the ones that were unoptimized, stuff like The Witcher 2, the numbers you see are astronomical. Like Alder Lake scales so well. It's the perfect architecture run with the RDNA 2 cards. Like RDNA 2 plus Alder Lake is power. Like you will scale up to like, I'm talking like 500 FPS in Resident Evil Village, like 400 FPS in Vanguard. Like I'm talking like up to 350 in The Witcher 2, up to 350 in some areas. Like still 180 in the cities. Like I'm talking like you know, running Ghost Recon Breakpoint with 100% GPU utilization. like 40 extra frames in Far Cry versus the 1050k. Running 140 FPS with smooth frame timing in Crisis Warhead. Like, dude, this is some like mind-boggling shit. Like mind-boggling. Like the architecture is so powerful, but so fucking broken. And well, it didn't fix Sniper Ghost Warrior 3. That's unfortunate. Like I was hoping that Alder Lake would just fix this game finally, but no, it still runs buggy as fuck. It's so sad, but whatever. Like I don't know, guys. For the few of you watching this, I guess feel free to leave down below if you have bugs with Alder Lake, because I'm sure you've seen something weird. I just highly doubt that anyone out there has had zero issues with Alder Lake. Like something must have gone wrong. Maybe you don't know, because but sometimes, you know, if you run the right combination of hardware, like if you run like the Micron sticks with the very safe XMP, like some of those kits and like with certain boards and BIOSes, you are running like 100% rock solid stable and you don't have issues. But when the issues arise, man, let me tell you, they arise. Goodness. But thanks for watching, and I guess be careful with, I don't want to say early adoption, but I guess so. Like, I don't know.